will have people know.
All right, that's enough. That's enough of the music. I'm anxious to get started because this is my favorite topic. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a live edition of Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your co-host, Robert Green.
I'm your other co-host, Leslie Richardson.
There we are. And our guests today are Maddy Montaquila and Becky Buckler. Becky,
Hi.
I'm going to add you right now so people know that you actually are a equal guest. You guys are just sharing a computer in the confines of the Microsoft offices. Is that right? You're in Redmond?
We are. We're in Building 18. I'm going to try to look at the camera and not at Robert's face. We're in Building 18. I'm here for MVP Summit. Becky lives here.
It's true.
So we're having a good time. Yep. But we were like, you know what'll be great is if we do this together in a focus room. And we'll have no technical issues.
Absolutely not.
However, we've had a smooth on it. So we're going to see how this goes. But, you know, you guys are pros. So
we have 3 computers. One of them has a working camera. One of them has working internet. And 2 of them have working Visual Studio. Who knows what's going to happen?
2024, that seems correct. That seems accurate. This is where we're at with tech, I think, especially in a hybrid setting.
Yep.
This is the
hybrid.
So this is real world.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So today we are going to talk all about deploying MAUI apps. We've talked a lot about MAUI itself, both on Toolbox and on .NET, and I think there was Let's Learn .NET, and we did an 18-part mini series on learning how to build MAUI apps, and I know our good friend James Montemagno did a series on that. So we've talked a lot about developing the apps, and we know that it's multi-application. So we know they can run on Windows and your iDevices, your pad, your watch, your phone, as well as macOS and other places, Android, of course. One thing that we haven't had a chance to dive into the details on yet is how you actually do that. How do you get these apps onto your devices and what is required? And you can do it. And you guys are going to demystify it.
Ooh. Or maybe we'll mystify it even more.
Yeah, that's cool too.
All right.
Perfect.
Something's going to get tified regardless.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Someone's getting fired.
You'll go in one direction, either more understanding or more confusion, but you're going to change today.
You will have growth.
Right.
It's like positive or negative. We don't know, but hopefully it's positive.
So what do we need to know about deploying?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. I will try and keep an eye on the chat too on Becky's computer.
Yeah.
But if there's anything worth calling out, feel free to interrupt us. You know the drill.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Where did I even begin? Okay. So with MAUI, as you know, 4 platforms: iOS, Android, macOS, and Windows. So generally, Windows is what most MAUI developers are kind of comfortable with because Visual Studio just does a lot of that magic for you. But if you're coming from the web world, that's also new. So we'll talk about it a little bit. Mac is kind of the most like, everyone's like, it's just magic. So what we're going to try and focus on for the purpose of time and everything, we're going to talk about mobile in particular today, because mobile has the most like pitfalls and also is what most people are doing with Maui. So yeah, I mean, I'll just start giving you a tour. Hopefully you have seen some introductory Maui content if you're joining this. If you haven't, all you need to do to get started with Maui is in the VS installer. If you hit modify, there is a checkbox that says .NET multi-platform app UI right here, development. It's this one. Yeah. Let me turn on zoom it too. Oh my goodness. I hope it's on pink. This is the important thing.
The most important thing.
Oh yeah, good. I'm an expert. But yeah, that's all you need to do. And then file new Maui app. That's what we're going to be working with today. I'm not going to get into like how MVVM or any of that works, so don't worry too much. When you crack open your Maui project file, this is where a lot of the magic begins. You can right click on the Maui project and you can hit edit project file right here to get this text version. We'll also look at the UI version in a second. But the really important stuff here in terms of like getting your app ready to go to a customer is that you can do things like name it and give it the app identifier, which is what actually shows up in the stores when you download it, like the name of the package, right? So this is literally com.companyname.mauiapp4. I mean, I would probably change this to like Maddy company.
No, I think ship it, yeah. Company name is my favorite.
Because no one else is using that.
And then that one app with that one scene and that one mechanic, excellent.
Exactly, you nailed it. But yeah, this is all like, you know, XML, right? So what's cool about this is that if you want to do something in continuous integration, CI/CD, continuous integration and deployment, you can actually like increment this kind of stuff incrementally. So you could very easily like tack on like application version, application display version, 1.0, whatever, in your pipeline. We're not going to try and get into CI/CD today. That's a whole other can of worms. Just know that it's possible. But yeah. And then the other things that are the important, like get these done before we even think about creating the package of the app, are things like our icon and the splash screen and all that stuff. So yeah, so literally with Maui, yeah.
There are a lot of steps. It's like you're like, oh, I built an app. I did all the hard work. You know, it runs. No more red squiggly lines.
Yeah.
Where do I want to go with it? And turns out that's like a whole nother chapter, a whole new level that we need to get through.
So I mean, like my first step for people is make sure that like your CS Proj is the way you want it, right? Like make sure that your icon is what you want and test it on a bunch of different devices, which we'll talk about in a second. So yeah, that's step one. Just make sure these things here are what you want. And then what you can do is go to right click properties. Oh, it's all the way down here because we keep adding right click items.
No, for better or worse.
Leslie, this is your domain. You're all VS, so you're the one who needs to make it.
Is it though? I feel like it's not.
You're the expert.
On Visual Studio. Yeah, but I work on .NET these days.
Yeah. But if I have a question about debuggers, you're still the one I go to. So.
That's not debugging related. That's just
that's entirely other. Okay, yeah. So in the properties window, it's pretty much the same stuff, but with the UI. But you can also see some new things. If you go to Maui Shared, this is also where you could kind of in a UI edit things like your title and your display version and blah blah blah. But it just reflects on the CS Proj. So if I'm going to change it here, it just changes the file behind it, right? Like if this is now Maddy app, and I save this, and I go to my CS project file, it is gonna. I need to close it, and I need to reopen it, and then it's gonna show Maddy app, which is exciting. So I'm just gonna undo that because I don't even want to know what kind of chaos I'm gonna create. The other things that you want to do, just to double check everything before you start the release process, is go in your platform folders and make sure that you have the correct permissions ticked off for your app. You should probably have done this by now. You can overwrite literally anything you set in the Maui version here, by the way. So like if you want your application name to be different on Android, this is where you would set it. But make sure that all of the permissions that you could possibly need for your app to work are checked off, both in the Android manifest, which is here in platforms Android, and the iOS info.plist is where they do it. It's a plist file. And then Windows, likewise. I mean, it's just the package. So if you do Windows development, it's very, very familiar to you. But
so, real quick question on the permissions. Is there like a cheat sheet as to what all of those are for people who don't know what they need to check? Or
yes, Google.com. Yeah, I generally, the way that I determine my permissions is I run the app and then it errors out in debug and it's like, you can't do that. And I'm like, I wonder why. And then I Google what permission I need to turn on.
Gotcha.
Smarter people than I probably have a better idea. Like, if you read the docs as you write things, especially like the Android specific docs, or the MAUI docs for device functionality, a lot of times we call out which permissions you need to turn on. So just like follow the docs, and don't do what I do, which is just like type things and run it.
That is one strategy though.
It is a strategy.
Yeah.
I found that the error messages generally are pretty clear. But when you click these off, what this is doing is when the person installs the app on their phone and they open it, it's going to say, hey, can the Android device like see your Wi-Fi state or whatever it is? Like, can this app open your photos gallery, whatever it is. So, and it's important that we notify people. This is not a MAUI specific thing, right? Like any app you have has to request permissions. So, oh, and Gerald's in the chat. Hi, Gerald. I was just about to call out, along with being able to overwrite things like the application name, the icon and all that stuff, you can go ahead and create like very fancy custom launch screens, both in Android and your resources, or as an iOS storyboard. And Gerald just did a whole video on doing this in Xcode. FYI, youtube.com/@JF I don't know. Oh, well, he's in the chat.
Yeah,
so you can probably just click on his name.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in learning, Gerald, drop a link.
Yeah, Gerald, what's the link she's trying to do?
Yeah, so if you want to learn about how to do all this stuff on iOS with Xcode and all that, that's a good video to watch. But we're not gonna touch the Mac today. We're gonna touch it in one way, but not that way. So, all right, those are the things you check first. All right, you just make sure all those things are kind of what you want them to be, and then you start testing it on different platforms. So, if you're doing MAUI development, you probably have played around with this. We don't know what we call it. It's called the target device selector / the debug picker / the F5 menu dropdown / the target framework selector. It kind of just depends on your mood for the day. And so you probably tested this out on Android, iOS, Mac, and Windows, ideally, or at least Android and iOS and Windows, if that's what you're deploying to, right? To make sure that the app looks and works the same on all your different platforms. There are a bunch of different ways to do that. So with Android, you can create emulators of all different shapes and sizes. We have it built into Visual Studio. So in the toolbar up here, I'm using the Visual Studio UI refresh. I'm in preview because I can't look at old Visual Studio anymore. It makes me upset. But you can go turn It's nice, right? And my theme is purple.
Really nice. Right, it's cool, and then like the rounded edges for everything. It's just,
it's so fun.
People and your rounded edges, man.
I know. Well, I always joke because I feel like the last time there was like a notable Visual Studio refresh. Obviously, it's changed with every version, but like the last one I remember is when we made everything all caps, and then everyone freaked out.
So I heard about that controversy, but I hadn't even noticed. I had Visual Studio, I had all caps. Never occurred to me it was all caps. I didn't even notice.
That was the first thing I remember. I was just starting off with like my .NET-esque development, and I was like, why is it screaming at me? I hate this. But now we're just rounding things. It's very cute. So, okay, yeah. So you can pop open this Android device and SDK manager right inside Visual Studio. I'm not going to show any VS Code today. I'll point out where you can do command line based versions of all of this in the docs, if that's something that interests you and you want to do VS Code. But I'm generally, especially when I'm playing around with Android stuff, I stick in VS because we have these helpers for you. So you can go and create.
Do you have a preference between creating using the Android device manager, using the Android emulators, or the Windows subsystem for Android?
So the Windows subsystem for Android, Amazon is discontinuing the App Store. So that is going away as of last week. I know. I'm really upset about it. It was so fast. And we did a ton of work to make it really seamless. And then they were like, psych.
Well, no, I'm withholding it.
Yeah. So we're back to emulator land. We'll talk about devices in a sec too. But yeah, emulators are the easiest way to go when it turns into like, I want to try on either a specific type of phone. Why is this scrolling so fast?
What's a Nexus?
What's a Nexus?
I don't know what
I thought you were an Android person.
I am, but I use the Pixel.
That's like the OG Google phone.
That was the OG.
Was the Nexus.
Huh.
I had a Nexus.
I learned something today.
Oh. But yeah, we have all the different sizes. And then we also have just generic ones. So this is really important to test with different DPIs, especially if you think your app will be used on older devices, because we will, in the resources, in the images, you can put in just a PNG and we're going to resize it for you appropriately, right? You don't have to put in, traditionally with Android development, you have to put in like all the different DPIs. So you need this image in 8 different resolutions or whatever it is. And you need to pop them into the correct folders. We are sizing this for you automatically, which is great. I would give everything a check just to make sure, right? Because sometimes, depending on the way that your layout is, the way we calculate it might not be 100% correct. It's been pretty good in my experience, but I will say, like, I don't usually test on really low DPI devices because I don't anticipate people using my demo apps like that. So,
trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Oh, I like that.
Mark uses that all the time. Yeah.
Oh my god, I want to use that. Wow, okay. And then you can also change different Android versions. Keep in mind, if you switch these around, it's going to end up having to download the bits for it. And that can take a minute, right? So like if you want to switch back to test out Android 8, which I think was Oreo. I don't know. I love Oreos though. It's going to have to download all of it in the background.
Oreos.
Yeah. So, and then you can also do a whole bunch of other stuff and like customize your emulator with these things. You know, make it.
So is the common advice to make sure you're testing for each older version that you want to have be compatible?
Yeah, I usually like what I do is I test for the oldest I care about, which you can also set in your project file, right? So you can go in here. You already loaded. Why are you slow now? And then if you go into Android down here, where is it? Scroll.
Do you want a mouse?
That would have been a really good idea. That's a later me problem. No, it's fine now. Oh, it's in Android targets. You can specify your minimum target Android framework, right? So in this one, it's 21 Lollipop. I was right. 8 is Oreo. I'm so good. Sorry. Just for the record, everybody here, I did have like a 18-hour travel day yesterday.
It was rough, yeah.
And I did get to my hotel at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So if I sound unhinged, please stop me.
Normal amount of hinged.
Okay.
Yeah. How will we notice?
Yeah, I think Maddy hinge. Yeah.
Yeah, Maddy hinge, which is already like 10% unhinged, but I'm not 10%. Anyways, what I'll usually do is I'll test on the lowest that I care about and the highest, because if it works on those, it's probably gonna work in between. Granted, I am not like an enterprise corporation.
Yeah.
If you are X airline or whatever, I would suggest maybe testing more thoroughly. But that's a problem for you guys. Yeah.
You probably have people where it's their job,
right,
to do that.
Correct.
So.
But like usually the things that you're gonna hit issues with between different Android versions is literally like the functionality of the operating system. So you might be doing something, and a lot of times IntelliSense will tell you like this isn't available before API 25. But you know, those kinds of things sometimes you don't realize. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you have a question in the chat about Vision Pro? If Maui's
yes.
Bring it in. So like it depends on what Apple does. Hypothetically, you can just run a plain old Mac Catalyst app, which is what Maui uses on your Vision Pro. whether or not that's like a good user experience, probably not. I don't see us doing anything specific for the 3D or the immersion based. But as far as just like taking a 2D application and running it, like hypothetically, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone do it yet, but I'm excited to see once people start playing around with it. I did see one of our colleagues who works at Progress did a demo running a Maui app on an Android emulator on an Oculus.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was
and
very
like,
cool.
A lot of jumps across
Yes.
the pond.
Yes, multiple steps, but it was really cool. So at Charbonneau, in case anyone's interested, I think it's on YouTube from Swedug conference. So okay. Anyways, that's the Android emulator. So that's one of the multiple paths. The other thing, of course, is an Android device. I like to test everything on a device at least once, whatever device it is. I do not have an Android phone on me, but you literally just plug it in. You make sure that developer settings are on the phone, and then don't click it. And then it will pop up as an Android device target in here.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize you could just do it via an actual real life device. I always thought you got the. I'm so used to seeing the emulator pop up, I guess.
I know. It's so much easier like to use the emulator just because of the different settings you can have like instantly. But honestly, when I deploy to a device, I have like a Pixel 5 in a drawer at home. And when I deploy to that, it's almost always faster. So yeah.
You just need to have the developer mode.
Yeah, you have to have developer mode on, and ADB is like the command line stuff in which you do that if you care about doing the command line, but we wire it all up for you too. So
does that work for iPhones, or are you getting to that?
It does.
Yeah.
It's also easier to test the UI because then you're actually using it on the device.
Yeah, I know that's ideal. So I'm happily surprised that feature's there.
Yeah, it's so funny because we always talk about emulators because it's like click blah 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 magic. But like we always forget to say like just plug your phone in.
You just plug your phone in.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about iOS. So we do this thing called hot restart. Which is different than hot reload. Thank you. Yes. I'm gonna pull up the docs.
Is this the direction we're going now, where we've exhausted Intella in front of things, and now we're just going
yeah,
it's so hot. Yeah.
This is the Xamarin docs. It is the exact same on Maui, just for the record. But aka.ms/hot restart redirects you to this, which is literally why I click it. It's very easy to remember. When you plug in an iPhone physically to your machine, it will pop up here, and you click local device. And you can run and debug to it. There is some magic you have to do for Apple to allow that to happen now. And to do that, you need to go to the App Store Connect, I think. .apple.com. That's gonna log me in. Ooh, which do you think my developer account is these days?
I spelled my name wrong.
I keep forgetting there's passkey.
My developer account, so I know which
one.
Hunter 11, huh? Do people still understand that reference?
What is my password, do you think?
What we're seeing here is that you need to make an account with the App Store Connect in order to use it.
Oh my God. I literally signed in on this yesterday on this machine so that it wouldn't do this.
I feel that. I get too off all the time regardless. I'm like, I just signed in 5 minutes ago. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Remember me for at least 20 minutes. That's all I'm asking.
Honestly, GitHub's the worst for me because it has a timer. So by the time I unlock my phone, pull up the authenticator, I'm at like 5 seconds left, and I like try to get in the numbers and I type one wrong, and then it's like, how dare you? You're an imposter. And I'm like, no, I just have 5 phones.
And also, we still need to check that you're human. So please.
The
traffic light.
Oh my God. So so in App Store Connect, instead of logging in with the username and password now, you actually can just go ahead and create like a bunch of various keys for the App Store Connect API. So you can see I have my App Store Connect, my hot restart key that I created, right? So there's an issuer ID, there's a bunch of other stuff that it creates. You have to download a file. So even with this, you can't steal it. So don't even try, it's not worth it. You can always log out and log back in if you go to Tools, Options, Apple Accounts. You just search Apple Accounts. And you can change your Apple ID, issuer ID, and key ID there, or add new ones. So this is logged in with the email I was trying to log in with, which my password is apparently wrong. So whatever. Anyways, you can also see I have Scott Hunter's dev intersection hot restart demo from a year and a few months ago. So that's fun. Cool.
Just quick. Let's clarify again. Hot reload is not the same as hot restart.
No, what's that, Fuel? So hot restart, the reason we call it hot restart, which actually is a good segue into my next thing, is it is very limited in what it can do, because we are basically building a generic app package. So you will not see your specific app icon or your launch screen or whatever. We're just putting on a vanilla iOS app, we're loading it into the phone, and then we're basically hot reloading your entire actual app into it on your device. And that is how you get around having to deal with a Mac, which we will talk about in a minute. This is like the this is like the Matrix, the Maui Matrix, as we call it. It's just like,
if there's one thing to take away from this, I think it's that this step, this taking your app and getting it to other places, is a very intricate process, and it's different depending on where you want to go. So just budget that into your experience, your timeline. And the documentation exists. It's all there in the Microsoft Learn. But it's a little tricky.
So hot restart is what I use personally when I don't want to pull my Mac out of the closet or wherever it is, or update my Xcode version or whatever, and I just want to make sure that my UI works right. Okay, so it's really for debugging. But to do actual deployment, is this on?
It is on.
That's exciting. Mm-hmm. You are going to want to either go onto your Mac and use the command line, or inside of Visual Studio, do some magic here called Pair to Mac. And this allows me to hook up to the Xcode that is on this Mac and use all the simulators and stuff there, just like we did basically with the Android emulators. It's just now we're talking iOS, right? So if you're not on a corporate network and you're on a normal network, this will pop up. I'm not even going to try to change my network because that's how I disconnected from StreamYard last time. You can also add straight by the IP. There's a whole bunch of different things, but it will connect. It will install everything on the Mac that you need. So you don't need to install anything over there except for Xcode. You need the latest Xcode, and it's going to take an hour and a half to install. That's just the way that Xcode works. So start that. Go eat dinner. Go watch a movie. I haven't seen Dune 2 yet.
I'm seeing it this weekend. I'm so excited.
So maybe that's what I'll watch next time I have an Xcode update.
I think you could do 2 installs of Xcode.
It's a long one. Re-download all my Android bits while I'm at it.
Studio.
So then you can pair, and then you can do literally the same thing we were just doing with the Android stuff, except with iOS simulators and an iOS device for the full experience with permissions, the app icon and all that. You just plug that into your Mac at that point. So your Mac is the one now that's handling all of the building and deployment. And this is an Apple requirement. Apple wants apps running on their hardware to be signed by their hardware. And it's a security thing, right? So I don't know, I'm looking at this camera, sorry. It's a security thing. So, we can't really work around it. We have seen people try to do Mac in the cloud, but we generally stick to what Apple wants us to do, which is if you are going to build something to release it on the App Store, you are going to want to get it on Apple hardware at some point. We just let you drive the Apple hardware through Visual Studio for Windows, if that's something that interests you. So that is how you get it on the places. The next thing you got to do is do all that magic again, except you want to do it in release right there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So do you want to do it for both? Release I can understand, but is it advised to test your deployment in a debug environment too?
I would test at least one type of each platform, right? So make sure that in debug, the Android app is working the way it should on whatever Android hardware is your ideal. iOS app is working on whatever it is. Release and hot restart do not play nicely. So when you flip to release, you're going to have to pair to a Mac. So just keep that in mind. The debugger libraries are what we use to do that restarting, basically. But yeah, flip to release. And then you can go in and start doing some other magic here. The biggest change with release versus debug is we try to optimize and link your libraries for you so that the app is smaller, right? Because if we sent everything out expanded in the way that we could poke through it with the debugger, it's gonna be a huge app. It's gonna be chunky. Yeah. So release, we link all these things. And sometimes the libraries do not like being linked. And so there are ways to work around all of these things. This could be like a conference talk on its own. But give everything a run and release, make sure the core functionality is good. And then once you're in release, what you're going to do is very easy. You're going to right-click publish, which everyone loves. It's very magic.
That's the dream.
It's the dream. And then you also, I forgot, you're supposed to select the device you want to publish for. So I'm going to switch back to Android. Actually, I'll switch .NET Android. Well, it's probably don't want me to make an emulator, but that's okay. And then right-click publish, and now it's going to see that I want to do for Android. Oh, it's just going to magically do it. Why does it say iOS?
Oh, while that's loading, quick question from the chat: If is there a right-click to get your app approved for sure by Apple?
So that is the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is like when it becomes out of our hands and it becomes into the hands of the App Store guidelines. Mm-hmm. So while this is doing this, I don't even know what the demo is going to show at the end of the day. But there are a bunch of different places you can obviously publish. So the ones that we usually talk about, the ones that are in our docs, are App Store. Obviously, that's where most people get it. But you can also do in-house, so you can distribute it through something like the Intune company portal, or just your own link. Ad hoc, which is literally how you would like email an app package to someone and flop it on their device. And then the command line if you don't want to use Visual Studio or Windows. But App Store is the one that's the most steps, because the App Store is both Apple and Android. Android's not as strict. They have very specific requirements. And so we do have a link in the App Store, iOS App Store docs. There's this nifty little tool called Transporter.
Transporter.
And it can help you understand like if there are any issues with your package to upload it. This is just a very nifty little tool. It's not by us. It's, again, this is where it starts to get out of our hands. But yeah, yes. You do need profiles. You need an active Apple developer account, which costs money. It's $100 a year. This, if my Mac was paired and everything, you would be able to go through me, like clicking the correct provisioning profile and App Store Connect and stuff. But it just clicks you through it. It's a UI. Don't worry. And then same thing for Android. This is the same doc, but Android. This is what it's doing right now. It's bundling it. And then you can either distribute it ad hoc, literally by putting it on your machine, or via Google Play. We can actually add your account, give you the Google API. Same thing that we did with the App Store Connect. And then it's going to pop you out to the browser eventually. And the browser is where you have the Google Play console that you're going to do all that stuff in. When it comes to like tips and tricks for this, honestly, like you live and you learn, I would say. Every app is different. Apple does have very clear published guidance on like App Store requirements. Let me see if I just give this a quick.
At least if Apple's going to be picky, they might as well have some good documentation on it. So that's good.
Yes. Yeah. They have a whole guidelines thing, but they will get mad at you if you don't have sign in with Apple, don't use Apple Wallet the correct way. If you don't have the correct identity and branding, like they're very picky about the user interface and like promo artwork. They care a lot about like the actual human interface stuff. So just keep this in mind. There's going to be an amount of work you have to do to submit to the App Store. What we see, especially with Maui, a lot of people are building Maui apps for line of business purposes. So you distribute them internally.
Yeah.
So you can use a different distribution mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
But just keep it in mind.
Again, this key takeaway. So just budget in time and energy to go through these steps.
Yeah. And this is something, again, that every app has to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a Maui thing. This is very much an Apple thing. The good news is, like, when they get the IPA or the .app file, depending on if it's iOS or Mac, they don't know it's a Maui app. It's not like that's going to be like a tick that they see and they're like, oh, this is a Maui app, we have to pay attention to it. Like, they just see it's an app bundle. What they're going to care about is that it looks and feels like an app that should be running on the iPhone.
Yeah. There's a we joke. There's a lot of stuff. I get it.
Yeah.
At least in the video game world, that's why Nintendo has like the Nintendo seal of quality back in like the 80s, because they didn't want another like Atari AT killed the video game industry for another decade situation. So
yeah, seriously. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because sometimes I download apps on my phone and I'm like, how did this get through the app store review?
Right. Oh yeah, I have plenty.
But it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, what guidelines did this meet? Because this is cool.
So what's the difference between in-house and ad hoc distribution?
In-house, we generally look at it like, let me go back, like using some kind of actual distribution tool. This one would be like, I think, what's the difference with Apple is generally related to the provisioning of it. So, like, if everyone's going to be using the same Apple development stuff, there's a different provisioning process. Where is it? But the thing that we see the most with in-house is using mobile device management tools. So Intune, blah 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 blah. Apple has done like built-in stuff now. The dock is here. There's also, like, I've seen people create literally like an Azure like a website. It doesn't have to be in Azure, but literally just link download here.
And then there's the download link. Yeah.
So the difference is really in provisioning it. This hypothetically is that it's something that should be able to run on any device that it gets put on, even if it's not through the App Store. Ad hoc is more like, I just want to give it to Robert so he can try it and I can figure out how to get the provision for his device properly. Yeah, you can do 100 per year, 100 devices per year for ad hoc.
So if you're just building an app for yourself and you're just going to put it on your phone, do you go the ad hoc or the in-house, and does it work differently? The ad hoc versus the in-house?
I would do ad hoc. Ad hoc because you're just going to put it on your one phone. In-house has the extra steps of, like, it needs to be allowable to put on something like Intune. Alan's in the chat. Hi, Alan.
Aww.
Okay.
Hi. Saying the same thing I'm saying. I think there's probably just like a 5-second delay, so he's honestly beating me. So thanks. Yes. Okay. Android, similar. They just don't have that in-house situation. You can just kind of put an ad hoc Google Play thing wherever. One thing to keep in mind is that there are different app package formats. So if you're going to publish through Google Play, I'm going to go to properties. Because it's trying to do this, it's not going to let me cancel. This is bad. This is a bug. That should not look like that. File it. I'm going to file it. Help report a problem. Well, sorry, help send feedback, report a problem, by the way. It's how you file bugs in VS. I'll always show that. No. Really? Anyways, you can change things between an APK and an AAB, Android App Bundle. If you're going to distribute something through the Android store, the Google Play Store, you want to do an AAB. Because what that does is it basically tells the Google Play Store, when I, on my Android phone, go in and request to install an app, it says, this is the type of device, these are the languages that are used on this device, and this is the resolution. And it only downloads the assets for that. So it gives you a smaller app package. Because usually what you have to do is, bundle every language pack, every resolution, all of that different stuff. So say debug APK, release bundle. If you're gonna do ad hoc, so I'm just gonna like email it to Becky and have her put it on her device, you do need to switch this over to an APK, because since it's not being installed through the Google Play Store, it doesn't have the APIs to tell me like, this is Becky's device, it's a Pixel 7 and it's got English or whatever. So just keep that in mind. But the bundle is the way to roll when it comes to like going through the store. So I believe it's the requirement now. Yeah. Okay. I think, hold on, let me check my notes. Those are the docs. Oh, yes, that's what it was. Profiling. The other thing is you are at some point going to be like, oh, this is slow. Or, oh, the startup is weird. What is holding me back here? Profiling is kind of like an ever-evolving part of Maui. Really, at the end of the day, what will work for every platform is you can use the debug performance profiling tools all in here. But that only works for Windows right now. So if you want to profile specifically your Android and iOS apps, there's some magic. And the best resource that I found is Jonathan Pepper's on our team. He profiles like various different apps basically with every Maui release. And you can see he's doing the time, if it's JIT, just in time compiled, the interpreter time, and then if it's profiled, AOT profiled ahead of time. So these are all things that can change the way that we build the app. So if you're having performance issues or whatever it is, like these are things to play around with. This is for a deeper dive on this one day. But he has PowerShell script here that literally just like, you know, will run things for you. It's great. And then you can take all of the outputs of it and pop it out and use it in something like Purview. For Windows, you could do something like, where is it? Not Windows.
What is that orange thing?
It's a flame graph. This.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it shows you like the methods and how much time and memory they're using. It's very cool.
That's very cool.
But what we do is like we recommend just doing file, save view as, and then opening it in SpeedScope for iOS and Android right now. So per view, you can start and stop collection manually on your app. There's a bunch of .NET Trace related stuff for Windows, iOS, and Android. There's a whole bunch of links in here. I mean, you can play around with it. Again, this is something we are refining kind of over time. But slowly but surely getting there. There are options now. You're not without profiling. So if you are having performance issues, this is the way to roll. I recommend like, you know, if you're having a bunch of performance issues in debug, you should probably try and figure those out, but run it as release because a lot of times those performance issues will go away and then see what happens there. Yeah. Okay. That is, I think, all of everything that was in my notes. So questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Robert, Leslie?
So to deploy your app on your own phone, your iPhone or your iPad or whatever, you absolutely need a developer account, correct?
Yes, you can get away with a free one for your own physical phone if you go through the Mac and you plug it in over USB.
What about for Android? You don't.
No, Android is no rules. I'm just kidding. There are rules, but it's much different.
Maddie is an iPhone user, and I'm an Android user.
I was an Android user for over a decade.
Yeah, that's
religious.
I remember
this is my first iPhone
when you got it,
and I've already destroyed the camera.
No, but yeah, I was gonna say Android's like the Wild West by comparison. So do what you want.
But yeah, so there is free, basically like automatic provisioning, we call it, for a debug build of an app that you run onto your machine, onto your phone through your Mac machine. Mm-hmm. But if you want to distribute it to anyone else, it's got to be something that it has the correct developer signing and identity and all that.
Okay, so what about certificates, identifiers, profiles, .p8 files, .p12 files, all this stuff? that I can't keep straight.
Yeah, you do it all in Xcode. As where I would stick it. I mean, we have a lot of the options, right, in Visual Studio. Apple accounts, right? There's some settings in here that you can do if you need any of that. There's a scroll. This is really annoying. What is taking up so much space? Oh, I was already in it. That's funny. There's this whole menu down here at the very bottom of the property pages for iOS where you have the bundle signing, so the kind of provisioning you want, automatic versus manual. Okay. Manual is how you actually choose a specific signing identity. So like this is my API one that I use for Hot Restart. You can create your own provisioning profiles. There's a bunch of options, the manifest stuff on info key list, and then there's a lot of little things to poke around with here. But for the purposes of just like getting it to run on your phone, automatic should work 9 times out of 10. 99 times out of 100. When you're ready to deploy to the rest of the world, manual is where you need to go.
Who's done the best job writing this up? Is it the docs? Is it somewhere else?
The docs are pretty good. The docs are very thorough. So I would start with the docs, and then if you're running into specific issues, there are a lot. I mean, we have a lot of blogs from the community about all this kinds of stuff. So I would just, put in your search bar of choice, ask ChatGPT. I believe Gerald has videos on these too. I know I called them out earlier, but they're from a year or so ago.
Yeah.
So they probably, I don't know. It hasn't changed that much. Gerald, if you're still listening, he's like supposed to be giving a talk shortly. So I don't know if he's actually still listening.
Leslie popped in the chat. Oh, she's talking about that.
Oh,
okay. You're fine.
Yeah, sorry. Which comment were you referring to? I was answering a question in the Twitter.
Oh, we were just talking about Gerald's videos.
Yeah, other resources. Yeah. I know James Montemagno also does a bunch of publishing related video stuff. So start with the docs, see where that takes you, and then if you're missing something, give it a search.
Search your.
Great. Right. We'll probably update the episode later on demand with show notes and stuff. So
yeah, I'll send you all of my links too, so you can find all those. Generally, if you need to get to docs for Maui though, literally all you gotta do, learn.microsoft.com.
Yeah.
That's just where you start. And then product documentation, .net. And then you scroll until you find Maui. Where is it? Mobile. Done.
Sweet.
Cool.
What else? Anything else?
I think that's mostly it, right? Like I think my big takeaway was I'm happy that there's a lot of documentation for this on the one.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not always the case. I know that's like bare minimum, or it should be the bare minimum, but that's great to see. And I love that this whole time I didn't realize you could just plug in your device and actually try it out physically. Yeah. So that's exciting.
It's a great demo. And if we ever come back to talk about more, we can talk about like tools for screen mirroring and all that stuff, if that's how you want to demo, or like put in, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, it's very, very flexible. That the flexibility means that there's a lot of corner cases sometimes that you have to test, but that's the reality of mobile development. Yeah.
So what's your screen mirroring tool of choice these days?
I pretty religiously use Visor, VYSOR, but Reflector is also pretty good, specifically for iOS. Right now, we actually can mirror inside of the IDE too. So if you plug in your phone and debug, there's this thing called Live Preview, and it works on everything. It works for Windows. So I'll just run it locally for Windows. It'll be the fastest. But it will work with an iOS device, the simulators, the Android emulators, or your Android device plugged in, all within VS.
What?
Yeah, hold on. I'll let this load and then I'll show you. It's so good. Truly so good. Oh, but this VS build, I screwed up my XAML installation. Let's see if it's working. It's going to be fun. Oh, Siri is translating everything I'm saying right now. Siri, sweetie. Please stop.
While that's loading, you have another Visor fan in the chat. Do you have the paid version by any chance, Maddie?
I have the free version, I believe.
Cool, because
So,
he's also when are we missing out on the paid version?
It's great. It just works. I mean, like, I would
That's
pay
all
for it
you
just to
have,
throw them a couple bucks because I really appreciate the tool. But other than that, yeah. All right, hold on. It's deploying. This will be the last thing we show. If it plays. What? Oh, it's because it's released.
Oh,
I should switch that back. My bad. It's in here though. So once this is up, you can go to debug, Windows, XAML Live Preview. Mine automatically pops up. And then when you hover over things, it shows you like the different size. But this tool will reflect an Android emulator, an Android device plugged in, the iOS device plugged in.
Okay.
Yeah. So
cool.
it's not interactable. It's purely for like UI inspection, right? But it does screen mirror things for you. So you'd interact with it right on your phone, but then in here it updates. And then the tool is like you can click on stuff in here. And because it's a release, it's not actually linking through all my XAML. But in debug, what happens is when I click on this, it actually opens the XAML file where this is defined and the line it's defined in, and it's very easy to inspect things that way.
Right. Okay.
But again, release optimizes out all that stuff. So.
Right. Okay. But you could, if you're showing to other people, you'd probably just use Visor or something similar, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're doing like a presentation or whatever to your client, I would just run it and use Visor or something.
What is Visor?
It is a screen mirroring tool for Android. I mean, I think it also works for iOS, but I usually use Reflector. I play around with all the different things. It's got this cute little icon.
Aww.
It's on the website anymore.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Visor. It's great. A window to your phone. So,
And it works for both. Is it just Android?
No, it also works for iOS.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, but I, for some reason, have always used Reflector separately for iOS. It's probably time that I consolidate it. But that's just, I'm a creature of habit. You know, once you have a workflow that works, you don't change it anymore.
Exactly.
So, yeah. It's always been for years for me. So.
Cool.
Cool.
So I'm going to agree with Fuel on this.
Yeah, shout out to the mobile developers out there. It's a lot of
dotting
your I's and crossing your T's.
Yeah.
Yes, very resilient. The nice thing about Maui is like we try to make things easier for you where we can. And obviously you can use .NET, so that's awesome. Yeah. And we try to abstract out as much junk as possible, but at the end of the day, like mobile is tough.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
A lot to take into account.
So. But hey, I mean, every single person on this live stream, I'm sure, has a phone with apps. So.
Totally. Like.
Yep.
We'll probably widely used a little bit. Cool. Well, thank you I think you helped demystify rather than.
Oh, good.
We didn't add any fog.
No, yeah. I feel like I personally got a little bit more clarity.
Yeah, it totally helps.
Good. And all y'all in the chat are GitHub. Well, not my GitHub. It is my GitHub. My Twitter handle's up here at Maddy Montaquila. Becky's at Buckler Becky.
Yeah.
It's just backwards.
There it is.
Yay.
So it's fine. And feel free to tweet us. We're 50-50 on if we'll see it. It depends. But yeah, and also check out all the other Maui content videos. We do a Maui community stand-up the first Thursday of every month, also on the Visual Studio, Twitch, and the .NET
I was
YouTube.
in last Thursday.
I wasn't.
Oh, yeah. Brett was showing off his new Aspire app.
Yeah.
And then Glenn's team, we were all building Aspire apps that day in like a workshop.
Oh, that's fun.
Like, we're doing that thing.
Synergy.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Cool.
Becky and I could chatter on for the rest of the afternoon if you want. So.
I wish I was there too, because if we were all in the same room, it would be
chaotic.
2 hours, yeah.
That would be fun.
So yeah, thank you so much. We need to have you back more often. It's a great time. And the people need to know about all the Maui developments, because Maui, it's so new, so it's like constantly getting new and new things every couple of weeks, it seems. So yeah.
Yep. And stay tuned for our Toolbox episode on the Maui extension for VS Code
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is on its way. It's delayed because the captioning system is not working at the moment, but it'll be up any day now, apparently.
Yay!
On both Learn and YouTube.
Sweet. Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for
guys.
being here. Shoot. Yeah, hopefully I'll run into y'all at MVP Summit.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, then.
All right.
Catch y'all later. Thank you, viewers, for watching.
Yeah,
And
thanks, guys.
yeah, so happy
Thank
coding.
you.
Happy
Thank you.
building.
Happy Bill.